Hello, and welcome to a podcast from the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. So, Dr. Ann DeSantis here. Our website is nonnatus.org. This is at the Our Lady, Our Mother podcast for families in crisis with myself and my wonderful co-host, Carlos Solorzano from out in Arizona. He's also a board member with the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation. Carlos, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you again for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. He's the author of a book called I Am His Mother on Amazon. We've talked about it on other podcasts. You got to check that out. He is a Catholic author, speaker, and he's also a longtime theology teacher for high school. So, Carlos, tell us a bit about you before we delve into this topic.
Um, I was just kind of laughing when you talked about the high school. Yeah, but when this podcast airs, I'll be in the middle of my 30th year of teaching. I was talking actually to my father-in-law about this yesterday, and I said, "Man, I can't believe how fast this has gone by." Because I started teaching a year before I married my wife, so it's my in-laws were around when because we were college sweethearts, so they were around at my graduation and all that, and all of a sudden I got my first job, and then here I am, and so it's been this love affair, really. I like anyone else, you can go through burnout or frustrations, whatever, but then it tugs on your heart, and you begin to feel this sense of service to everything from that to just this calling you have. It's like the vocations are so many different things besides the married or single life or religious life. It's also what you do. And for some of us it has to do with teaching, say in my case theology, and also um just there's other calls too. I mean, I've met people who serve their community church communities doing. I knew a guy who years ago, I met him in Pennsylvania. I was in Pittsburgh on a tour when I was in college, and he was a sound man. He was an audio engineer, I guess they use that word now. And he's like, but he does that for faith-based events, and to him that was his service to the church, was doing that. And I thought that was amazing. But the one thing that's so wonderful is you have those experiences where your students will or former students will be your biggest cheerleaders. I mean, I had made the decision to return to a school I worked at for 10 years, and it was interesting because right around the time I was about to think I was about to go to the interview to return. I was out one day in town and I ran into one of my old students. I taught him maybe 10, 12 years ago, and he was there with his girlfriend, and he was, because they call me Solo. He's like, "Hey, Solo." And I'm like, "Hey, Don, how are you?" And he was just real sweet. "Hey, how are you? It's good to see you." And then just he told his girlfriend, "Yeah, he was my theology teacher in high school, and he was the best," and blah blah blah. And I was blown away. I was just like, wow. So I told him, I go, "Yeah, I might be going back over there." So he was like, "Well, they'd be lucky to have you," and blah blah blah. It was just such a great moment. And I remember going home and telling my wife about it and just saying, "Yeah, I think that's a kind of a nice sign that I'm, not just doing what I'm called to do, but, people talk about, God puts you where you need to be." So I said, well, if that doesn't tell you, I don't know what else will.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think personal stories when it comes to the people in our lives and even the work that we've done is really what it's all about, I mean,
Hmm.
that's what you remember, isn't it? So thank you for sharing that. And it's important, I think, too, in our development as humans and people of faith too. And it kind of goes in line with what we're going to talk about on this podcast too, which, and I'll explain why I think that way. But the topic of this podcast is basically marriage. We're going to talk about the crisis of when something happens in a marriage and there's issues and maybe you need to get counseling. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that life is what Carlos just described, some good memories that he's had with teaching and people and all of our relationships, if we look at it that way, the good, the bad, and the ugly, what makes up sort of our day-to-day lives is what's important. And what's
Hmm.
more important than who you're living with and who you have a covenant with, a marital covenant, right? It's so important. And we deal with people all the time in the foundation, St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, who have marital problems. And they reach out to us for a few different things. They either want some prayer, they ask for us to have us to pray for them. It might be something to do with divorce, or it could have something to do with somebody else, right? Maybe it's somebody else that they're related to, that they're concerned about their marriage. So it could be for themselves or for other people. And so, whoever's listening to this, whether it's you or somebody that you know, we want to talk about some ideas and ways that marriages can be healed. Just like anything else, it takes time. But I wanted to start out with you, Carlos. I know you had some good stories to share with marriages that went through some, in air quotes, I'll say some stuff, but they were able to get through with God's help. So please do share.
I think the biggest problem we have in the West is that everything has to be a celebration, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I see a lot of people saying we spend time getting ready for the wedding, we don't spend time getting ready for the marriage. And I remember my parents, especially my mom, really sitting me down a couple of times after when I got engaged and not trying to scare me, but like, okay, this is what you're going to have to deal with. And, and also her dealing with you. And, and it's funny because like, you always hear those people who are like, well, you're not the person I married. Yeah, it's been 5 years, it's been 10 years, it's been 15 years. Nobody stays the same. And if you stay the same, you're not growing as a person. And I think what we've lost in our civilization, really, and I said the West, is what does the word commitment mean? It's not even just. I mean, I'm a musician, and like I've had performances where somebody's like, "Hey, man, it's like a week before, I can't do the show." Well, what's going on? Well, I got offered this other gig. They're going to pay more, and I totally understand that. But it's like, but doesn't giving your word mean something to you? Like I've been in that. I've been in positions where, and I'm not saying that those were bad people, but I agreed to something, and okay, so I'm not going to go back on that. I had the choice to say no. Now, if that was one of the things that I appreciated about getting married in the church was that, we had to go to those pre-marriage classes, and we had an amazing priest who, you know, instructed us, and he also ended up presiding at our wedding. And he was very quote unquote real about things. And you have to think about, who is this? I mean, who is this person that you're going to go through life with? Not just, oh, do they have a lot of money? Oh, are they beautiful? Whatever. No, I mean, I think of, I think what I always referred to was when I knew my father was dying, but when I got the news, my wife was the one that answered the phone, and she handed the phone to me when my mom called to tell me. And then I had to, I get off the phone and I'm telling her, when she's, telling her what happened. And then remembering a few years before that, I was the one that told her grandmother had died. She was very close to her grandmother. And so you go through all that together. And a lot of times we like to focus on, well, I will never forgive someone for XYZ. And it's like, okay, some of those are valid points, but there are certain people that you would forgive more than others. And it seems like we don't look at our spouses that way. If you really know a person and you know their history, I don't like making excuses for the way people grew up or whatever, but I mean, it does shape you, it forms you, it helps, so you got to take time to get to know the person, but not just to ask yourself, can I put up with them, but can I, do I understand why they are who they are? I mean, like I always kind of laugh and joke about it when people get engaged and, you watch it on TV and the guy, he gives her the ring and she starts crying her eyes out and stuff like that. And I think that's adorable. I think it's beautiful. But I remember my wife didn't cry. She's like, she's not a real, mushy person. So I was just happy she said yes. I mean, it's fine with me. But I kind of expected that. I wasn't, wasn't really, I've known her at the time for a while. And plus, we had talked about getting married. So it was, my proposal was more of a formality. It wasn't a surprise. But I will share this. And I think this is really important. This is where her and I were blessed, was both of us were raised by parents who are like, look, you figure your stuff out. You can't just give up. You have to figure it out. And some, it's not easy. No one says it's easy. It's a very simple concept, but that's life. You have to figure out the problem.
Well said. Thank you. You shared a whole lot there, and
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. It's great advice and great reflections. You started out by saying that in this country, and I think you meant in the West, you said
Hmm.
that we are very much into celebrations. And I just want to talk about that because I do think, based on my own knowledge and experiences, I think you're absolutely 100% correct on that. If you think about it. And even right now, we're taping this. Actually, we're kind of ahead of the game here.
Yeah.
We're taping a whole bunch of these in the summer. So it's the summer months right now, but this one doesn't go live until the fall. And this is the time right now where you go to the weddings and we just ended like the graduation season and all of that, and all of the sacramental, communions and all the different other celebrations. And you're 100% correct in that we are very much into the celebrations. And I think as a culture, we don't honor what comes after that celebration as much as we should,
You know,
And so I do think that was a smart
yeah.
thing that you said.
I want to share two short examples of what were very eye-opening to me. First, I was in college, and my wife is a trained opera singer, and her teacher was this wonderful lady she was Armenian, and very heavy accent, real nice lady, beautiful vocalist herself. And I got to know her. My wife would take me over to her house, and they'd have little things here and there. And she was just such a sweet lady. She had great kids and all. And it was interesting because her ex-husband was always around. And I don't know all the details, but my wife would always tell me that she would still refer to him as her husband. She would still say, "Oh, this is our anniversary. This is like." It was kind of like, I'm guessing because I never asked a lot of questions, but I'm guessing he was the one that initiated it, and she accepted it, but in her heart, it didn't change anything. And so from a cultural standpoint, I mean, she came from that mindset. But the one other one I wanted to share was, I was actually at the Theology of the Body Institute years ago, and Christopher West told us this story that just no, it was another instructor, sorry, Dr. John Haas had told us this story where, if I remember correctly, he and his wife were living away from home for, I want to say it was about a year, and they knew it was not going to be a long time. I think he had like some kind of post or something he had to be at, and he had said that they befriended this couple, and they were having marriage problems. Again, I think they were in Europe, and it was just an overseas culture. And he told us a story where his wife was talking to his wife about, well, his wife was talking to the woman in the struggling marriage. I'm sorry, and her daughter was there. I think her daughter was a teenager, and his wife, devout Catholic and all, but she's listening to all of what she's going through, and even she said to the woman, "Well, why don't you just leave him?" And her response shocked her. She motioned to her daughter, and she said, "I can't stop being his wife as much as I can't stop being her mother." I remember when he said that, the whole room just froze. It was just, wow. And if you think about it, what I use to reinforce this idea when I teach that to my students is I always invite them to go on YouTube and watch after Sonny Bono had died, and Cher, his first wife, she was invited, ironically, by his present wife at the time, his widow, to do a eulogy. And when you watch the eulogy, I will never forget this. When it first happened, I saw part of the news. everyone was just stunned. Like, wow, she talked about him. You'd swear they were still married. And I think, well, I don't know, I didn't know them or, but my first question when I saw that was, I don't know what they went through, obviously, and it's none of my business, but did they give up too fast? Because if you do give up too fast, you're certainly going to regret your decision to separate.
Wow, that is so interesting. Well, it makes me honestly, it makes me want to look at that eulogy.
You
It makes
should.
me want to go on YouTube and and look at it. But no, these are good stories to, to illustrate to ourselves and our audience the permanence, right? And as Catholics, we believe that it is covenantal
Hmm.
and that we can't give up too quickly because I don't know about you. I mean, I've been married for going on 36 years. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And there you can't get around the fact that there troubles come for everybody, whatever they are, whether they're little troubles, big things, things that happen could be a loss of a job or other things, health crisis, but stuff happens in marriages that
Hmm.
challenge you, and it could be something to do with your kids.
Yes.
And the culture would say, "Oh, you're getting tired or you're getting sick of it, give up." But as Catholics, we know that there's a permanence there. It's an important thing, and so we want to promote and foster and help people to have strong marriages. I mean, that's part of what we do in this foundation is try to offer that. That's one reason we're doing this very podcast is that we want to make that outreach. That's not to say that if somebody comes to us that says, you know what, I'm already separated. It looks like it's going in this direction.
Hmm.
Can you help me with this? Or somebody who's divorced or annulled. Like we care about everybody, is what I'm trying to say. So, whatever your situation, whether you are married and you want to, you're giving everything its best shot, right? You want to work out the problems and know some good tips that you can have a stronger marriage. I mean, that's first and foremost. But for those who are listening, that maybe you already are in a situation where it's headed in a certain direction, then we're praying for you. We're praying for you in every way so that you can make right decisions and feel good about them and get the support that you need for healing, right, Carlos? Because I mean,
Yes.
that's also very, very important. Now, I pulled up this article, which I'm just going to list off a few tips. Actually, there's 6 tips for a healthy and happy marriage. I can't take credit for this article, but you can go online and look for it. It's by the Catholic News Agency, and that's catholicnewsagency.com. But again, the title is 6 Tips for a Healthy and Happy Marriage. I'm not going to read the whole article, but I do want to read the tips. And the first tip it says is to keep a sense of humor. And I think that's an important one for all of us, right? I know with my
Yes.
husband and I, that is a huge part of our everyday existence and in our happiness in our marriages that we keep a good sense of humor. 2 is be forgiving of each other's wrongs and failures. Number 3 is to recognize that marriage has its ups and downs, just like we were discussing. Number 4 is always put your marriage first. Extremely important, even when it comes to your kids too. Number 5, be cheerful when your spouse comes home from work. Now, I have to interject on that one. We both work from home, so there's no coming home from work.
Oh,
My husband and I pretty much spend together 24 hours a day. So, um, so we maybe have to re-edit that one for people who work together, right? Who have those online
go for a
jobs.
walk.
Right. Number 6 is never underestimate the power of prayer and the sacraments. So check out the article. It's by someone by the name of Kate Wicker,
Hmm.
and she wrote the article for the Catholic News Agency. But I didn't know, Carlos, do you have any comments on any of those tips?
Um, I love them, and I think like the one about the sense of humor. Um, my wife and I, we she's kind of I'm the goofball, and she's sort of I want to say she's just a lot more reserved. So, it's not like I won't say something and she won't laugh, but at the same time, if I say something and I get like a smirk or an eye roll, it's just who she is. But I mean, it's not like she's telling me that I'm ridiculous or something. It's just I'm learning her, the same person that didn't cry her eyes out the proposal. It's okay. Um, it's one, and I think one of the things I've learned is too is we talked about the celebration thing. Is I had a health teacher at community college who he had been divorced, and he had actually told us, he's telling a bunch of 19-year-olds this story. Before you get married, go to a marriage counselor. And I remember my wife and I were, like I said, college sweethearts. And our senior year of college, we used the health center because I told her that story. And we would actually go see because we were entitled to X, like I think a weekly session as a student at the school. So we had gone and talked to this older lady who was a counselor there and told her about that. Told her, yeah, we're engaged, we're going to get married soon. Could we come in and talk to you? And she said, yeah. And we weren't having problems. But the thing was, she knew how to kind of get us to talk about things that we were either buried inside, or more importantly, teaching us how to understand the other person. Like this is kind of how women process, is how men process, and sort of, how to read them. And of course, you realize too, sometimes while you're trying to keep the peace, sometimes you bury things to, keep the peace, but that means that they're unresolved. So that was a good thing for us. And then also, what I would say too is when people today, they meet and they rush into things like, I meet some adults and, they meet somebody and 2 weeks later they're moving in. And I'm like, you don't even know this person. And if you know, date someone for a while, I mean, because like you talked about, marriage has its ups and downs. Well, when two people are spending time together, there's going to be ups and downs. You start seeing things of the person and you learn them a lot more. So, and you're going to go through some struggles and it helps you see where things are going. I mean, like there's a difference between not tolerating someone's behavior that could be identified as abusive and a person who, for example, will just cut you off and not take responsibility for their actions. Well, do you want to find that out when you're dating someone, or do you want to find that out when you've married someone and, oh, I don't know, you've also signed your name with them for a mortgage, car payments, and everything else? I mean, sometimes there's just things you have to do where you got to be smart about it and give it time. I mean, there's no rush. I mean, you don't have to be married 6 months after you meet the person. Just take your time. And, some people need more time than others, and that's okay.
That's good advice. I never heard that idea about going to a marriage counselor in advance, but hey, I mean, I think anything like that, any of these ideas or things that, you could possibly try, are good because, we got to get creative sometimes, don't we?
Hmm.
With
Well,
trying to figure out
kudos to my health
making
teacher. I
good
mean, that was
decisions.
he was, he told us that story because he was getting married. He was remarrying, and he told us that his divorce had been really bad. And he didn't get specific. He just said it was really bad. And he said, one day I'll forgive my ex-wife for what happened, but I had to make sure this time around you know, and it was like, okay. And I don't know his life, and that's fine, but I just never forgot that. And I've shared that with so many people, and I've known people who, and I tell them, don't pat me on the back. It wasn't my idea. I'm sharing with you something that was a absolute gift to me and my wife. So, absolutely.
Wow, yeah. I just think wisdom comes to us in different ways, doesn't it?
Hmm.
And the things
Absolutely.
that we remember when you look back on your life, there's certain things that really stick. And so if that was something that stuck and it was a positive thing, then it's good.
Mhm.
So a shout out to the people who are on this podcast, and maybe you are going through something. I just want to make sure that you know, which I've mentioned this on other podcasts, but maybe this is your first time with us, is that we offer free pastoral care. You can make an appointment with a Mercedarian priest, which are the people that the religious order actually that founded us. And all you need to do is go to nonnatus.org to the Our Services drop down. You'll see a priestly consultation, and you can make a free appointment, as many as you need. We also have a great one and wonderful, helpful resource page. It's called Outside Resources. And we have counselors at the very bottom of that page. You will see a list of several counselors that you can reach out to if you would like to, talk to a therapist, because we're not therapists. We don't claim to be. But a lot of the things that we help people with have to do with like church teaching and the church. So if
Hmm.
it's in that realm, we certainly can help you. But please do reach out to us. We're headed toward the end of the podcast, Carlos, and I thank you
Hmm.
so much for the great words of wisdom. Did you have any final words?
Sure. One thing I would like to say is, and this is one of those things where we as people would just kind of what if or guess based on human experience, but um, with the Blessed Mother being the focus of these podcasts, I mean, do not think for 1 second her and Joseph did not have disagreements. And I would say, imagine how they would have worked it out. And because then that would be the thing that would give us the graces to guide us. Because I think a lot of times, another, I'm paraphrasing a quote I had learned years ago where it said, most people listen to respond, not to understand. And I think a lot of times when we're arguing, we're you can see that in the other person. They're just throwing mud back at me. You're not really resolving anything. You're just throwing mud at each other. And it doesn't necessarily suggest that you're going to sit at a table and everyone's just nice and proper. And I mean, you might raise your voice. I mean, sometimes when someone is expressing something to me, whatever it is, and they're getting louder, I don't stop them because either they're venting or they're mad at me, or maybe they're passionate about something. I think the most important thing though is to recognize when it's time to, you know, okay, you got it out. Now, you being a Philly girl, I have to bring this up because I love those Rocky movies, and when I've been there, I love going to the art museum and seeing those stairs and the statue. In the third Rocky movie, you see one of the most beautiful marital arguments because Adrian raises her voice to him when he won't tell her what's bothering him. And when he finally tells her, and he raises his voice too out of frustration because she's trying to get her husband, who was the heavyweight champion of the world, tell me what's bothering you. And here's this man who says, I'm afraid. And most men don't want to say that because they're afraid of the woman tearing. What kind of man are you? And the first thing she says to him is, I'm afraid too. There's nothing wrong with it. And the minute she broke through that wall, she brought it back down and she told him what he needed to hear, from everything from, I'm going to be here with you when you're at the end of this run of being the beloved public figure. And, I'm proud of you. I love you. Like she just had to break that wall. And once she broke that wall, she built him back up.
Wow, what imagery. And it's
Mm-hmm.
it's so funny that you brought that up because we're actually taping this beginning of July, and of course over the 4th of July, they were showing like the succession of Rocky movies.
Mm-hmm. My
And my
favorites.
husband always likes to watch those, and I do too. Like you said, we're Philly people. We love that series, and it means a lot to us, especially the perseverance part of it. And what a great you know, just a reflection there. And fear has a lot to do with why in marriages, why we have issues, because we're
Mm-hmm.
afraid of different things in life. So, but the Lord is with you. And I'm so glad that you brought up the Blessed Mother, because all of what we do has to do with Our Lady. This is the Our Lady, Our Mother Families in Crisis podcast. excuse me, sorry for the technical difficulty there. We know that with the Lord and Our Lady by our side, that we can get through anything. And so I just thank you for all that you shared with the movie and with your faith and everything. It's just a wonderful thing. So grateful to you, Carlos, for joining
Thank
us on
you.
this podcast. And remember, to everyone, we'll be seeing you the first Tuesday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Philly Nonnatus YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. I also wanted to mention too that everything that we do is rooted in Our Lady. This is the Our Lady, Our Mother podcast, as I mentioned before, and we know that when we pray to Our Lady, when we intercede, she can help us with all matters of life, including our marriages. So, Carlos, thank you so much again.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
We'll see you all next time here with the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for freedom, family, and faith. God bless.